Sakura Wars, so long, my love. I know, recently I just won't shut up about this game, a role-playing adventure with visual novel, strategy and puzzle elements. Came out for both the Wii and the PlayStation 2 in North America this year, and that's right, this is officially the last JRPG release for the PS2. High replay value, multiple endings, decisions that greatly affect your bonds, cheesy story but emotionally deep, and with some really addictive battle mechanics relying much on combination attacks. Absolutely a must-play. Star Ocean: The Last Hope. So I didn't cover the 2009 original release on the Xbox 360 because I wanted to talk instead about the international version. Although the vanilla felt harder, I beat both games and noticed little differences between them. Got a lot of hate because of some characters, but I felt it really compensated by standing out with others. You know it, technical battle controls, some strategy involved, a Steam challenge. No matter what its haters say, I still think it's one of the best of 2010. Ys 7. So Ys 7 was the first game in the series to include playable party members, also fighting by your side. I wasn't a fan at all of Ys, so that was a highlighted feature for me. I became an undying lover of this franchise thanks to this game. Most of the previous titles were short adventures, while this one truly felt longer, deeper, and overall more compelling. Without a doubt, the well-deserved second place of 2010. Nier. Of course, The King is my absolute favorite RPG of both the PS3 and 360. A masterpiece that gave way to genius Yoko Taro the support his career needed. With an overly warped and dark story with some very controversial twists and obnoxious fan service, Nier became a bizarre experience, and those are the ones that usually bedazzle me. By far, this action RPG, this Drakengard spin-off that's nowadays its own successful series, is the unquestionable overlord of the year 2010. Dragon Quest VI: Realms of Revelation. Couldn't leave out their next remake of this iconic series out, which was installment number 6. First time ever the world officially experienced this game, as it always remained in Japan, following the adventures of a group of heroes that struggle with amnesia while discovering a place called the Dream World. With the classic gameplay structure of the series, this game is one of the best of 2011. Disgaea 4: A Promise Unforgotten. This is my favorite Disgaea in the series, available nowadays for most modern systems, but the PS3 was its console of origin. Following the quest of the vampire Valvatores in a rebellion against the president of the Netherworld, alongside the usual wacky cast of lunatic characters. Even though it's the vanilla version, a fun but grindy journey awaits the player in this twisted RPG. Fate Extra. A personal favorite on the PSP, criminally underrated as it is part of this gigantic popular franchise. With strong visual novel elements, but also a dark and mysterious story that keeps you hypnotized. It's a dungeon crawler in third person, a grindfest as well, but with an amazing battle system I've praised so many times in this channel. No wonder this masterpiece is one of the best JRPGs of 2011. The Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky. Another port, originally released in 2004 for PC only in Japan. until its localization on the PSP this year. It took Exceed Games a long ass time to translate it, considering the huge amount of text. Yes, this is quite the vast and expansive video game, and it's only part 1, but you know, it's totally worth every single minute of your time. Lovely story, memorable cast, amazing fighting in turns with a small mix of strategy. Trails in the Sky is among the absolute best JRPGs on the PSP and of 2011. Radiant Historia. Over the last few years, I was so eager to get to this one because of Radiant Historia, a rather unique and original game with great music by Yoko Shimomura, developed by Atlus and Headlock. One of the best stories ever written in a JRPG, revolving around a soldier and the power of a mysterious book that allows him to rewind time and alter the events. We meet again a turn-based combat with a touch of strategy, very well implemented. This is, without a single doubt, the remarkable first place of 2011. Shin Megami Tensei Devil Survivor 2. So when the first game was already carving its fame in both the DS and 3DS, this late release came along. Still an atrociously hard strategy RPG, but not as much as its amazing predecessor. Great adventure, again with overly addicting mechanics. That original battle system, man, was just nimble. Story was awesome too, it's just this time there were more highly stereotyped characters, but that was okay. The Last Story. A game that took the world by surprise because its name was literal, Sakaguchi's last written adventure on a video game. A fantastic action RPG with dark and baroque graphics, full of strategy and dexterity. Lovely story filled with good romance amongst the harsh truths of kingdoms, magics and treachery. Definitely inside the highest ranked RPGs on the Wii and one of the best of 2012. Ragnarok Tactics. A personal favorite on the PSP, criminally overlooked. Masterful strategy RPG, grid-based, with tons of jobs and classes available. I often praise it because of its 3 main playable characters, all with their diverse paths to follow. Beautiful artwork and graphic design here. You appreciate this while taking part of a raveled story that carefully unwinds with the choices you make. Tales of Grace's F. Another underrated game, perhaps stingy for having a convoluted combat. Let's not forget about its gracious difficulty thanks to this. I, however, say this in a good sense, as it is one of those RPGs where the more you practice, the more enjoyable it gets. It was first released on the Wii back in 2009. 3 years later, the complete and definitive version came out on the PlayStation 3. With its long and charming story, full of character progression, it became one of the best JRPGs of this year. Growlancer Wayfarer of Time. Perhaps my favorite RPG on the system, but you know it, I have a love-hate relationship with it. All the blame going to its ridiculously hard challenge. Some missions are balanced and strategic, while others grind on your nerves, ultimately destroying your patience. That doesn't change the fact that it's a very addictive game. Growlancer 4 has one of the best stories ever written, with several different routes, crucial decisions that affect absolutely everything in the long and taxing journey you'll have. Xenoblade Chronicles. This is a role-playing game that threw the Xeno series into a ginormous commercial success. An action-adventure filled with science fiction within a specially crafted universe. Its real-time combat, relying on many different skills and combos, blew people's minds. Just as its boundless open world, its seamless possibilities, and its amazingly intricate story. Dragon's Crown. George Kamitani, founder of Vanillaware, had previously worked in Dungeons & Dragons Tower of Doom and Shadow over Mystara. He took all the love and influence he had gotten from that experience and created the legendary Dragon's Crown, a multiplayer beat-em-up with strong RPG elements, excellent gameplay, amazing interface, beautiful world, music, graphics, and, well, its rather controversial character design. Project Cross Zone. The greatest JRPG crossover in existence, in my opinion. A strategy game that brought over many memorable characters from tons of different franchises. I've covered this game a lot and declared my passion over it 1,000 times. While my praise is there for the diverse fan service, it usually goes for its extremely addictive combat mechanics. Ys Memories of Celceta. Initially an exclusive on the Vita, this next entry in the long-running Ys series was just brilliant. The positive reception of Ys 7 and its inclusion of playable allies made Falcom comply once again. It's a mix and definitive version of two games under the Ys 4 banner. So in the end, it became the true Ys 4, among the absolute best JRPGs of 2013. Tales of Xillia. Among my all-time favorites in this extensive series, it was the first PS3 game I owned and finished, to a complete bedazzlement. Graphics and art were absolutely outstanding, and so was the incredibly deep story. Loved the character development here. What stood out to me the most, however, was the fighting. This became, in my opinion, the epitome, the pinnacle of the franchise, precisely because of its perfected battle mechanics. So Tales of Xillia is, by far, the best JRPG of 2013. Bravely Default. Influenced by old-school turn-based RPGs with a very unique system involved, it's the game that caught the world by surprise due to its beauty and nostalgia feels, but also a gigantic grindfest with difficulty spikes everywhere. That doesn't mean this popular game is bad, as it is one of the best JRPGs of 2014. Tales of Xillia 2. Another sequel here is the king of this year. Gameplay-wise, it took everything done right with the first game and improved it. Now you had a new protagonist and a new conflict, but still dragging on the plot and the characters from Xillia 1. It was slightly darker with more story, tons of side quests, and dashing graphics. Sometimes I think this game is even better than its predecessor. Regardless, it takes the very well-deserved first place in this list. Atelier Shally, Alchemists of the Dusk Sea. This is the third game in the Dusk trilogy, also available on the PS Vita. So why is it here? Well, besides the fact that I'm always going on about it being one of the best in the series, because it is one of the best in the series. I felt the battle mechanics were taken to perfection with some awesome combos and quick interface. And also the very important fact that the time limit to complete some story quests was finally gone. Bloodborne. An amazing follow-up to the Soul series, and yet another take on the concept. This time it was the gothic, gruesome Victorian era, with visually stunning graphics. Some say it's way harder than any of its predecessors, and even better. I honestly won't apologize for agreeing with those statements, as Bloodborne is a truly magnificent game, but also a tough bastard to master. Lost Dimension. I honestly resisted giving the throne to this RPG, as I am a big fan of it. A tactical RPG that's just quite unique. The concept of trapping people in a place, inducing them to distrust and paranoia, it seriously worked wonders as a role-playing game. It just has a terrific story with high replay value due to its multiple endings, a plot where the decisions and judgments of the player are crucial. And that battle system, man, it became an obsession during my first playthrough. This criminally underrated masterpiece is, without a doubt, one of the best JRPGs of 2015. The Legend of Heroes: Trails in the Sky, 2nd chapter. 4 years had to elapse for fans outside of Japan to meet the long-awaited sequel. Once more, the amount of text to translate it was simply outrageous, but trust me, it was worth the wait. Alas, this excellent follow-up was digital only for both PC and the PSP, still with no physical release nowadays. God damn it, because it totally deserves one, as it is a great JRPG, even better than its lovely predecessor. The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel. So glad to crown this tycoon, this fresh start in the Trail series, the beginning of an empire. Late release here as well for both the PS3 and the PS Vita, an extremely iconic game nowadays that keeps gaining fans all over the world on a daily basis. It threw the series finally into a well-deserved commercial success. Apart from its anime tropes, it delivers a long, masterfully written plot with strong character development, several gameplay mechanics including a military school simulator, and its nailing battles played in turns. This first game in this amazing tetralogy is, without any objections, the Flame Holder of 2015. The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 2. Thankfully, fans didn't have to wait several years with this one as they did with Trails in the Sky 2, the direct and ambitious sequel to that great cliffhanger in the first game. Several small improvements were done to the gameplay, but overall it was the same graphic engine. However, I felt the story progression was better than before, just like its endearing battle mechanics. Shin Megami Tensei 4: Apocalypse. Following the steps of its amazing predecessor, Apocalypse took the world by surprise. Since the original SMT4 was very quest-driven, developers decided to give the players a more linear approach. They totally nailed it here, cause gameplay-wise it felt completely superior. Story was still dark, twisted and carefully crafted, even though it now had some Persona-like stereotypes. And if the music was a masterpiece in the first game, this sequel was a ginormous eargasm like no other. Tales of Berseria. One of my personal favorites in the Tales series, with a story surprisingly dark and a twisted heroine bent on revenge. I guess the fighting here was a love it or hate it, considering it took elements from the complexity in Graces and Zestiria. In my opinion though, it did all right, achieving what those games couldn't. In the end, it turned out to be a fulfilling adventure with a great cast of characters. Nier Automata. No need to cover one of the strangest and darkest video games of this generation. With the help of a tremendously good gameplay mixing shooters with hack and slash, Automata easily thrived. Besides its complex but excellent story in a post-apocalyptic setting, you know very well what else helped accomplish its enormous success. Is 8, Lacrimosa of Dana. Here it is, Falcom's masterpiece, the pinnacle of its existence. 30 years of history and evolution of this wonderful series. Absolutely everything was done perfectly. Story, graphics, music, combat, characters, quests, exploration, interface, controls. Damn it, this could have been number 1, but just this time I'll cede the throne to you know who. I don't need to talk about this game. Instead, I'll just say this. I struggled a lot with these 5 JRPGs. Hours spent trying to decide which one was best. I'd love to call it a tie between them all because they're so freaking great! However, there's only room for one king in the throne of 2017, and that is for Persona 5. The Alliance Alive. I've covered this lovely hidden gem on the 3DS quite a few times here, just like Lost Sphere. With original Suikoden creator on board, company Cattle Call developed this turn-based RPG, one with a combat system that takes influence from the ancient Saga series, including a different leveling feature. A diverse group of allies awaits you in this dystopian world with both science fiction and medieval fantasy elements. Valkyria Chronicles 4. So after my beloved spin-off Valkyria Revolution was poorly received, Sega immediately worked on a true 4th main entry. In terms of gameplay and graphics, it was almost identical to the first game. However, it was still beautiful and shockingly addictive. Great story once again, interesting characters, and now with the secondary cast finally playing a more important role. Octopath Traveler. Yet another incredibly amazing title taking influence from the Saga series. Hard to believe it was developed by the same people who created Tenchu and the Akiba games. They absolutely nailed it with this enormously beautiful game, my current obsession I confess. Yes, it's a big grind fest, but with that battle system, man, how can you even resist? Definitely one of the best JRPGs of 2018. Dragon Quest XI. This one needs no introduction. You knew it was going to be the king of this year. The game that completely changed my mind on the Dragon Quest series. I became a huge fan of this astonishing wonder because the more I played, the more amazed I felt. While the previous 3 games easily hold a candle to it, there's still no way they can surpass this new colossus in the history of JRPGs. Fire Emblem 3 Houses. Yet another marvelous addition to the series, even though it didn't quite feel like a true Fire Emblem anymore. Regardless, it was still an overly fantastic game with its completely different roots and several memorable characters. So many new gameplay mechanics were introduced here that it simply became a very addictive RPG to play. The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 3. After so many years of waiting in the dark, us fans of this series finally got our wishes granted. The third entry of this wholesome tetralogy arrived in our lands. It continues the story on the second game where it left off, but with some new main characters involved. But if you missed the guys from the previous two games, don't worry, they're here too. Very good game, takes a while to really start off, but it's totally worth it once reaching its climax. Code Vein. One of the darkest adventures I've ever enjoyed in a video game. Always been a huge fan of post-apocalyptic and gothic stuff, so Code Vein enamored me even since the trailers. A very daring but highly addictive action RPG, full of strategy and challenge. Excellent graphics too, as well as a notoriously interesting character design, in all sense of the word. Trials of Mana Remake. That's right, this one is a full remake of Seiken Densetsu 3. That one was an only in Japan game for a long time until its official English release in 2019 in Collection of Mana. Several months later, the world made its full 3D remake, and I gotta admit, it looks absolutely beautiful. It turned out to be a pretty solid one, considering Square Enix didn't throw a lot of money into its budget. Controls are fine, which makes the action quite decent, and overall its gameplay is pretty much alright. It remains true to the original, but giving the player more freedom during the action. This is a great game, and it's definitely one of the best JRPGs of 2020. Final Fantasy VII Remake. No other remake in existence has been as anxiously awaited as this one. It took Square Enix almost a decade to deliver what they initially promised. Unfortunately, it's only part 1 of the classic game that was the PlayStation release, which makes it all the more massive as it is a full reimagining of it, with tons of changes and extra content. And those changes include what you already know, the battle system now being action. In my opinion, it was very well done. A great remake indeed, absolutely one of the best of 2020. "13 Sentinels: Aegis Rim." Another hugely unexpected surprise was Vanillaware's most recent experiment. It turned the world upside down, leaving their classic 2D action behind for a real-time strategy RPG. One where battles take place in overview maps, with enemies coming at you from every direction. A turn-based system that swallows you whole into immersive combat. And let's not forget its overly beautiful 2.5D style, with quite the complexity in storytelling, but with a plot that is honestly just as addictive as its excellent battle mechanics, especially since it's told through 13 characters, each with their own different points of view. Not the best JRPG of 2020, but definitely by far the most unique and original of them all. The Legend of Heroes: Trails of Cold Steel 4. It wraps things up with a drastic all-out war in the continent of Cimmeria with Rien Schwarzer at its core. It took everything from its 3 previous episodes to convert it into gold. Still with its excellent turn-based battle system, including the combos, the skill attacks, the great magics, and the famous S-crafts to wreak havoc in the battlefield. Last but definitely not least, its extremely well-polished story, which grounds the character progression uniquely. A large cast from all entries in this long-running series helps the building of one of the most incredible and outstanding RPGs ever made. And of course, the best of the year 2020. Let's find out what 2021 has in store from now on. See you next time!